my gorgeous friends on the internet, how you are doing? I so much appreciate your time for actually waiting on me to deliver this particular video tutorial. So I so much appreciate and I love you so much, guys. So today, someone actually reached out to me and also posted on my comment that I should make a video of how I structure my folders whenever I want to start a new Flutter project. So in this video, I'll be showing us how I actually structure my own folder, how I structure my files, which is much like the first thing I do whenever I create a new Flutter project. So today I'm going to show you that because I believe most newbies who just get started with Flutter, they don't really know how to achieve stuff like that. They don't know how to structure their data for others to read it. And sometimes, even if you're much more experienced, there's a way that you can structure your folder, your file structure, and everything. And even a beginners who is taking on your project in the future will be able to understand it and also flow with it without any confusion or stuff like that. Okay. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is to create a new Flutter project. So I'll be creating it here. Okay, let me see. I like creating it inside. Okay, let me create it inside my desktop. Okay, just cd into desktop. Okay, like so. So I'm going to be creating a new Flutter project. So let me just call this folder structure. Okay, in case you don't know, I like creating my projects from the terminal instead of using VS Code and Android Studio. So that way, it makes me to actually it's just easy for me, using the terminal to create. Okay. So let's say you just come up. This is the first thing you have when you build a new Flutter project, and you can see we have the basic Android, Linux, folder, Mac OS, and the rest. We also have our prospect.yml file. So the first thing I do whenever I come to I'm building a project is to know, first thing, you already know the asset folder, which is more like where you add your images, your icons. So if you have asset like this and you have images, you can just create another folder and name this one images. So if you watch the way I name my folders, okay, because Flutter by default they use lowercase, but I don't really go with their own method. So what I do whenever I'm creating a new folder, okay, whenever I'm creating a new folder, what I normally do is just use images. Okay, like more like the first initial letter is always in uppercase. Okay, then if I'm creating, let's say I'm using fonts, I'll also create the fonts as well. Alright, so inside these fonts now I can now paste all the fonts that I'm using for this particular project, and then paste no, fonts is not normally here. Sorry, this should be icons. Sorry, my bad. So this should be icons. If you want to create fonts, you have to create another folder for that. Okay, you have to create another folder for fonts, which is here. So this is more like the conventional ways whereby Flutter recommend we create fonts and folder, because without this way we won't be able to reference it from our prospect.yml file. Sorry, our prospect.yml file. Okay, I hope you know about this. So this is where we are going to reference the images. So if you are working with assets, so you just have to remove this comment here. Okay, and then you have something like this, like so. So whenever you are using the project, you just have to call asset slash the image name, or let's say asset slash icons. Then the image, if it's in images, you do asset slash images and slash the name of the image that you just added. Yeah, stuff like that, and you're good to go. Okay, you just have to only make it this way. Just do it like this. Then if you're working with fonts, let's say you've already added the fonts you want to use here. So let's say Excalibur or whatever. So what you're going to do, you'll come down to fonts, and then just, I normally like, okay, if it's one font, I will remove this comment like this, and then change the name to the name of the font. But right now we don't have any fonts, so this might throw some errors. So you have to change it to the name of the font, and then to reference the part of the fonts, you start with fonts, then the name. The name is normally here. Once you paste your fonts, you're going to see the names here and stuff like that. Don't worry, in my next tutorial I'm going to show us how to work with, we'll be building a full to do our project using provider, file structuring. We're also going to work with fonts, and yeah, we are going to be working with REST API. You see how to make post requests, get requests, authentication and stuff like that using using REST API. So just stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe so that you hit the notification bell so that you won't miss the next video when I drop it. Okay, and I'll be covering file structure in depth in that course. Okay, so we can see here you create your assets. Okay, so much like this asset and fonts are normally referenced inside your prospect.yml file. Okay, and this is where you add all your dependencies. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go over to the lib folder. So what I normally do in my lib folder, because I always know that my project is going to large. Even if it's small, I know I still keep the same, I'm still consistent in the way I structure my folders. So let's say the first thing I do when I start a new project is to first of all create a screen. So it's normally in uppercase like this, screens. So what this screen means is more like the view of my application, okay, where I put all the views. If it has a home page, bottom nav page, drawers and stuff like that, all those pages, I put them inside the screens. Okay, now remember, my preferred state management is actually provider, yeah, and sometimes I use Riverpod, but I use provider a lot. So in the next course that is going to be coming up next is going to be in provider, REST API, file structure, and you guys are going to love it. So just stay tuned. So what I normally do, I create a providers here, which is actually a folder too. So this is where I write all the provider like that communicates outside my Flutter application. As I want to make network requests and stuff like that. But there are some network requests too that I want to make that does not depend, like maybe I don't want to use a provider. I normally use services for that, but I rarely use this because everything I do is much more with provider to just listen to the event and then give us response and stuff like that. But I rarely use these services, but I normally create it in case I want to make any HTTP call that, but I don't want to use state management for that. So more like using a future, and once it returns I get the data, stuff like that. Okay, that's when I use services. But providers, when I know that this stuff is going to be changing with time, maybe I want to make a network request and make it just easier. Okay, because sometimes if you use set state, it's more like when you're working with feature build. When you use services, I put my HTTP code there. Then if I'm working with feature build, I will just call the function name and it will return the data. But in some cases I just want to return it without using future builder or stream builder. I'll put them in provider, so that provider is going to listen to the events and then return it to me. And also I have another folder which I create, which is called styles. So as the name sounds, it means styles, where I put all my fonts, my default font sizes. Where I put my default font sizes, my app colors and stuff like that. So inside these styles I do create a new folder inside, so I'll call it colors. You can see I use lowercase all through because this is a file. Okay, it's a dart file, so I'll create it like this, colors.dart. Then I can just create a class, call it app color, and it's going to be a static color. Let's say I want to work with white, or let's say the primary color of the app is actually amber, so I will have something like this primary color. Okay, I will call this one colors.amber. So let's say this is actually the default color of the primary color of my app. So I can add as many colors as needed inside here, but this is actually how I define my color. So whenever I want to call it, I will just do color.primary color. And when the primary color of the app changes, I don't have to be looking for each of the folders where I reference this name to change it. I will just have to come here and change it to something else, and the app color is going to change entirely throughout the app. Okay, so it's so amazing like this. And then the next thing I do is to create let's say I use font size. I normally create it like this, font size. You can see I use lowercase if there are two words. Okay, I use underscore if there are two words. So I use font size, and I normally I just create it directly. So if it's a double, I'll just call it, let's say header size, something like this, and I'll just call it 16. So this is more like how I create my sizes. If I want another one, I can say test size. Okay, test size, which is more like a 12. Yeah, just stuff like this. Okay, this is actually how I create my font sizes, and it's been helping me a lot. Okay, so you can actually get some ideas from this. And then one other thing again, this font size you can okay, one other thing again, I think that's all. I can't really remember another thing I create, but I think colors and font size would do. Yeah, I think that's actually what I put inside styles, colors and font sizes. Okay, that's what I what I put inside styles. And then moving on, I actually create another global variable which I call widgets. So what I normally put inside these widgets are more like the widgets that I use globally throughout the application. So let's say I have a snack bar, a customized snack bar for displaying messages to users. So I'm going to put them inside this widget, create them as a function. Okay, there's going to be a custom parameter or stuff like that. So let me show you an example. Let's say I want to create a message dialog like so. Okay, so that was a mistake. So let's say I want to create a message dialog like so. I'll have to create since this is a widget, or it's not really a widget because it's a function method that we're going to call, but it returns a widget actually. Or yeah, it returns a widget. So what I can do, I'll just say void show message like so. Then I can actually create a custom parameter that will take a custom message as well. Okay, and you can actually create the colors if you want to make the colors change. Then I can have something like show okay, let's say it's a snack bar. Now I can just say scaffold messenger, okay, stuff like this, that show snack bar, and I can have my snack bar. Okay, then we'll pass the content, which is actually the message that I created. So whenever we are actually accessing this function, we are going to create the function like so. So this message, you need to have this. Okay, let me close this properly. And this context is required, so I will have to pass in build context here. Okay, but sometimes there are some times I just use okay, I use lowercase here, sorry. Okay, there are sometimes this context, you know, I can't keep passing them over and over again. So what I do sometimes, I use the get package. Yeah, I believe you know the get package. So it helps me to give me context wherever I cannot access context. So what I just have to do is just to call get.context. But get is not yet in this project. So you can look it up on pub.dev. Get is actually the name. So you see it. I actually use it to provide context in my app. Okay, instead of passing them from the parameter down. So I'll just use get and then to provide me with that with the context. Okay. So that's cool. Then whenever we want to show this message, you just have to, instead of us now typing scaffold messenger every time, we just have to call show message and then pass the message and the context, and the dialog, the snack bar dialog is going to show for us. So you can add as many widgets as you want, widgets that you actually use throughout your application. Okay, yeah, that's where you put it. Then you can ask, what about the one I just use in a specific file? Well, let's say you have a screen and then you have a home page, so you can just create home page here. You can just create home page. Okay, let's say you have home page, something like this, and inside this home page, oh sorry, okay, I think I can create, okay, let's say we have okay, so I don't know what's happening here, so I think I have to open this in containing folder, so I'll be able to modify it from there. So this is the screen, this is the home page. So let's say I create another folder here now. Let's say we have home page and we have about page like this. Okay, then inside this home page I have all the home pages and stuff like that. Then inside here, okay, let me go back and go back now. So let's say we have the home page. Okay, so inside this home page now I can have another folder which is called widgets. Okay, so these are more like inside these widgets I'm going to add all the local widgets I use for that particular home page. Okay, that cannot be used outside the widgets, like outside the page. So I'm just going to reference them inside these widgets and then we are good to go. So every local widgets are going to be inside the home page widgets. Okay, but anyone that is global is going to be inside this widget, anyone that I use throughout the application. Okay, yeah, I think you get that. And then the next folder I create is actually Utils Folder. So as the name sounds, it's utilities folder. So basically what I store inside here are global functions. global functions. Any kind of functions I use in my Flutter app, I store them inside this utils class. They are all global function. In fact, basically all my functions are actually inside this util class. But sometimes we can actually create another folder inside this home page to become function. But I've not really tried that, because more like things I'm doing is more like they are all inside these utils folders. And there's a function. Let's say we have a function that more like show. Let's say we have a function that returns uh, function that capitalize the first text. Okay. Uh, yeah, that returns. Okay, let's say that get initials. Okay, let's say function that get the initials of a text. Let's say we have a color, it will return C for us. So what I normally do, I return a string, and this is going to be like get initials, like so. Then I'm going to pass the string name. Let's say the string, you need to pass it, while you're typing, while you want to access it, you're going to pass the string. And then inside here, what I'm going to do, I will say something like if let's say message dot length, stuff like that, is greater than 1. Okay, so what I want to do is just to return message dot substring 0, then we say message dot length. Okay, so if it's greater than 1, all right, but if it's not, let's say it's just 1, what we just have to do is just to return the message itself. Okay, so what this thing is doing now is actually going to return the initials of this string. So let's say we pass hello. Okay, if we pass hello here now, once we print it out, it's going to return. Okay, let me say I do something like this now, void main. So I'm just working with that now. This is not like Flutter, so I just want to show us something. Okay, let's say now I call this get initials and then pass destiny head. And you will see if I print this stuff out now, let's say I run it. If I print it out now, you're going to see it's going to print D, okay, instead of destiny head in full. So let's just wait for it to run. This is not like this is still that is still Flutter, but I'm trying to test it out with that out. So let me store it in a variable like so, and then we are going to print it out here to see. Okay, like so. Let me run it again. Okay, I'm going to kill this and run it again. Okay, I guess this is taking time to run. I don't know why, but why it is running. Let's move on to the next thing in our agenda. Okay, I think this is more like everything I normally create whenever I'm starting a new Flutter project. So you can see the utils where I create. So I just believe you understand the concept. And the utils is where I store all the global functions, and then the widget is where I store all the global widgets I use throughout my app. And then I also have the styles where I store colors and font sizes, and then I have services where I store functions or network functions that communicates outside my Flutter app but does not depend on provider. Okay, that does not depend on state management, in fact. So that's where I actually store them. Then for the screens, this is where I create all my screens and stuff like that. And also for the provider, it's still the same thing as services, but everything that is inside here depends on provider. So once I get the response, I would call notify listener and to now notify my widget. So further structuring actually helps us a lot in terms of separation of concerns. Instead of having all your folders or your function or your widgets in one particular Flutter stateful widget or scaffold widget, it's just better you separate them entirely, and that way you'll be able to understand your files. So guys, this is what I wanted to show us, and you can see how it's very simple. So even a newbie will understand it. But as your project progresses, you see that this stuff will be getting larger. And one other thing again, sorry I forgot, is the model class. Okay. Yeah, it's a model class, more like where I stored my collection of data that I want to model in my application. I almost forgot that, but I always create a model class. Okay, so I'm going to create a model and then pass it through there. So all of this, you'll be seeing it in my next tutorial. So stay tuned. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I'm going to show you guys how to fully use file structuring. We are going to be building a full to do application using REST API. You're going to learn how to do authentication in REST, how to perform create, CRUD, delete, and stuff like that, and also how to use provider state management, and also how to structure your folders. So stay tuned, guys, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.